Welcome to The Insider, the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Our topic, Clari Park, that massive mixed-use project under development on Medical Center Parkway across from the Avenue. Our guest from Hines Global Real Estate and Development is Walter O'Shea. He is the managing director of the company. The real estate executive is joining us from our studios here at Murfreesboro City Hall. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about Clari Park, what we've done to date, and the plans going forward.
Well, we really appreciate you making the investment in Murfreesboro. It's a rather big project. The company itself is headquartered in with offices in Houston, but you have offices elsewhere, including Jacksonville, which is where you're headquartered, right?
Correct, yes.
And I guess we should start by just talking about the real estate firm itself, being as large as it is. Give us kind of the history of the background of the company.
Yeah, it's a great story, and feel very blessed to be working with them. I've been with Hines now for a little over 27 years, so been a good part of my life. I guess more than half my life.
Right, that's a long career.
Yeah, working with Hines. It's a wonderful organization. It's a third generation, privately owned family real estate development and investment company. As you mentioned, headquartered in Houston, which we were founded in 1957 by Gerald Hines. And Mr. Hines came from an engineering background, had gone to Purdue, and really kind of came into the real estate development world with the eye towards how can we improve upon the quality of the assets that we're developing, both from an architectural standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, and then also from an operations standpoint. Kind of a simple premise, but one hard to execute. When it comes down to how you really plan, design, develop, and then manage real estate investments. So, currently the firm is run by Jeff Hines and his daughter Laura. So they're co-CEOs, again, second and third generation of the Hines family. We have offices now, I think, in 30 countries and, probably 300 cities across the globe, about 5,000 employees worldwide. And so at this point, it's grown to be really one of the largest private real estate firms in the country.
Why Murfreesboro? Why did you choose this location to do what you're doing?
Well, actually, our involvement in Murfreesboro goes back to around 2012, 2013 timeframe. So at that time, one of our investment vehicles was a real estate investment trust, a REIT, and we acquired the Avenue, Murfreesboro, and then operated that for several years as an investment for the REIT investors. I wasn't directly involved in the acquisition, but was working on some other projects in the Nashville area, and so came one day to visit the Avenue just to kind of see what it was and tour it. And two things struck me immediately upon getting off I-24 was, one, just how beautifully executed Medical Center Parkway was, just the landscaping, the architecture. I mean, it's remarkably well done. And so I think to anyone in the real estate investment development world, it stands out. So that was one. And then the second thing that struck me was this 78-acre piece of land sitting across the street from the Avenue. Like, how and why?
Just there for the picking.
Yeah,
right?
How and why is that not developed? As we started to kind of look at that over time, the growth dynamics of the city, the wonderful things, the lifestyle that Murfreesboro has to offer in terms of the quality of the school system, quality of the healthcare, great employment node, great employment sector, great retail offering for residents. It just was, from the overall kind of city perspective and the location of the land, it just made a lot of sense to try to pursue for a mixed-use development.
Now, you said that you had acquired the Avenue at one point as part of your investment. Is that still the case?
No, it was sold, I think, in 2021. I think we sold the Avenue, yeah. So.
But now you're investing in the property across the street.
Exactly.
And it's a rather large investment, and it began, at least from the visual standpoint for us, of course, a lot of work behind the scenes, but we started seeing restaurants popping up.
Right. Yeah, so we began, I think we actually contracted initially to acquire the property in 2019. and then worked on our rezoning process, with the city staff and city commission. And I think got our zoning approved in 2021, and then began planning for some of the master infrastructure, the road network, and then have proceeded forward from there.
So this is a mixed-use development that has commercial, retail, residential. What was it that drew your attention? You've kind of alluded to the fact that it was right across from the avenues and it was wide open property, but anything else about that particular location that drew your attention?
Sure. So, kind of winding back the clock a little bit, we're I think like to think of ourselves as a research-driven firm where we really try to look at underlying demographic and economic trends to help guide our investments. And, two things stood out in terms of just kind of Southeast in general. One, from a demographic standpoint, you have a lot of young professionals that would be moving into their kind of next stage of life, starting to start families and raise families. And so their housing selection would be changing over time. And then second thing was when you look at kind of consumer trends and preferences, there was a really high preference for people looking for housing in suburban locations that provide a walkable lifestyle to amenities. And yet when you look at what's actually developed in most cities, there's very little of that housing available. So it's kind of a mismatch in terms of what people were looking for from a preference standpoint and what was being offered. And so, we've really have for the last, 10 years been trying to find properties like the Clari Park site where you have amenities nearby. You have 110 shops and restaurants at the avenue right across the street. And then providing, nice upscale housing in those locations to meet those demographic trends and consumer preferences.
I think your company has also mentioned that you either like being near healthcare or in this case, healthcare was an important factor. Why was that the case?
It's a great job driver and a great, employer, and therefore, demand for housing nearby. And so, we looked at the Medical Center Parkway and kind of did some background research and came up with the fact that there's somewhere in the range of 8,000 to 10,000 jobs just along Medical Center Parkway. And at the time we were originally looking at Clari Park, there were only about 2,000 housing units. So there was a real imbalance in terms of what the employment that was offered and the amount of housing that was available. And so we saw a need to really provide more housing, both for rent and for sale housing, which really there really hasn't been any for sale housing developed here in Medical Center Parkway. So we saw that as an opportunity to, again, meet those consumer preferences and provide some nice upscale for sale housing where people could walk to not only the shops and entertainment and dining that we'll be providing in Clari Park, but across the street to the avenue as well.
So this master plan development is obviously mostly about residential and providing housing that is needed. Demand is great right now because there are a lot of young people that are trying to find housing, and some of them can't find, single-family housing, so they're going with rental. But it's a lot more than that. So It looks like what you do, you work with, as you said, the retail part of it and some of the restaurants that you partner with. But then it's this whole lifestyle thing that you're developing as well.
Yeah, it is. And that's one area as a firm we've really tried to specialize in is in what we call mixed-use development, where you're providing, taking uses like retail, entertainment, in some cases office, and residential and mixing those together. The thought process being that it enhances the value of all of the different product types. Given the proximity of the uses near one another, it's very appealing for those that are shop owners that have residents that nearby, for residents to be able to walk to the services, and for those that are looking for office space to be near both both housing as well as the amenities. So that was the thesis, that we really looked at. We wanted to provide for sale and rental housing, and then, hopefully bring in a nice offering of restaurants and entertainment and shopping uses to complement that.
The site plan is also, has been mentioned, organized around green space. When you do that, you're taking away some of the space that you could build housing.
Yeah.
But you do it anyway.
We do. we want to create, and again, back to kind of our founder's vision, thinking about it a little bit harder, coming up with a plan that really works, providing amenities that we think will be attractive to the occupants that will be there, is an important part of placemaking, as we call it. And throughout my career with Hines, providing walking paths, linear park systems, places for people to get together and gather, we have just found that to be such an important part of what, whether it's an apartment, someone leasing an apartment or someone buying a home, just a big part of what people are looking for.
Now you have this, I guess it's called the Raleigh at Clari Park.
Correct. Yes.
And if you're looking at the location now, there are a number of buildings that have gone vertical. I don't know if it's 2 or 3, but you would know.
Right.
How close are you then to renting some of those out? What year do you expect to be doing that?
So the Rowley it's a 300 unit, what we would call kind of Class A luxury apartment community. We're currently consists of 3 separate buildings. They're all under construction, so that's the larger buildings under construction that you see when you're looking from Medical Center. There's also one hotel, which is a 5-story building standalone. That's also under construction right now, too. So the overall program for the Raleigh, as I mentioned, 300 units. Really, one area that we saw to maybe differentiate ourselves from other apartment communities in the area was a really heavy focus on outdoor living and providing great spaces for people to get together and meet with friends or maybe have some more formal events for the residents that live there. And a little bit of that comes from a lot of what we've done and what I've worked on personally, which are more residential master plan community development, where we know that providing those places for social interaction is so important to the residents. Be very important for our residents at the Rowley in terms of their retention and maybe wanting to stay in the community for another year. So it's an investment of some additional land. It's obviously an investment of the landscaping and the amenities that we'll provide in there, but we feel like that investment will be returned over time.
What are some of those amenities or features that you are going to have there?
Oh, great. Yeah. So we're planning from an exterior amenity program, we're planning 3 separate outdoor spaces. One we're calling the Grand Lawn, which will be a little bit more of a kind of a formal landscaped area with a pavilion that will be able to have, small music acts come and play and be able to bring all the residents together for more called formal social programming. And then a second space, which will be kind of the traditional resort pool. So that'll include some nice outdoor cabanas and grill stations, a covered area, and it'll be immediately adjacent to a 2-story indoor club room for residents can get together and gather. A couple of those social spaces with a TV to get together and watch a football game. Actually, we'll have a golf simulator, again, set up with some seating for groups of people to get together and enjoy that activity. And then some private workspaces as well in that social lounge. And then the third outdoor space we're calling the Zen Garden. The idea there, it's a little more organic in terms of the layout, so curved linear pathways, some seating areas that are tucked in under trees where you have fire pits, and again, some more grill stations, quiet areas for reading, a yoga lawn, which will be immediately adjacent to the fitness center that will be included on the inside of the building.
You've already mentioned that this is considered luxury, so these apartments are above average in terms of the amenities that you're offering, but then consequently they're probably above average in terms of the pricing. Where do you expect your market to come from? Are these people that are already in this area, or will they be coming because they see the suburban lifestyle that's becoming more attractive, I guess, post-COVID and everything?
I think a mix. So we did our homework. We've done a lot of market research on current renters within Murfreesboro, and there are many renters in Murfreesboro, fairly affluent households. Their household incomes are well over $100,000. So there are definitely renter households in Murfreesboro that we would hope to attract to a better quality building itself in terms of the Raleigh, but then also the experience of being within Clari Park itself and having these linear paths and all of the the walkable amenities. And then also Nashville continues to grow. I don't know what the number is, currently, but there's people moving here from other markets, many coming from, coastal cities where they're used to paying, have higher incomes, used to paying a little bit higher rents. So, we think it'll be a mix of those that are here and those that are coming here.
You mentioned something that I don't know that I was aware of, but you said there is a hotel. Do you have a franchise? And is that the one that is kind of near Wilkinson Pike? Because I saw that there's a larger hole that had to be dug for the foundation, but I could be wrong about that.
No, it's right. So the hotel's located right in the core of,
in the middle?
Yeah, right across from the avenue. It's kind of directly behind, there's a multi-tenant retail building that's been complete where Cava will be located and where
Lovesac. Okay.
Right behind that. And yes, it's a Marriott Town Place Suites is the flag. And it's under development by a local hotel development firm, Chartwell Hospitality. They're kind of best in class developer and operator of hotels all throughout the Southeast region.
And do you have a date for opening on that, or do they have one?
I think I'm trying to think of the date that they had told me. I think they're looking at kind of mid next year. This timing.
2025?
Yeah, 2025 timing of that.
That's great. I think we might have broke some news here.
Yeah.
So, do you have a time frame on the other residential areas in terms of when you think you'll begin renting? And are you doing that now? Are you marketing to people to rent now?
Not yet. We'll typically start kind of what we call pre-leasing, maybe 90 days before the building will be complete. So we're thinking that initial occupancy of the Rowley will be, call it, second quarter of next year. So we'll probably start pre-leasing in late first quarter, early second quarter of 2025 for the multifamily rental apartment. And then on the for sale side, there's currently, depending on what we do with one of the parcels, somewhere between another 230 to 300 for sale housing units. Those will predominantly be townhomes, upscale townhome product. There will be a few single family homes kind of mixed in that as well. All of the for sale residential can be a little bit of a different product than maybe what you've seen in Murfreesboro to date. It will have more of an urban form to it. So all of the roadway access will be on alleys into the back of the units, where you'll have garages that are largely kind of tuck under garages below the footprint of the building. There'll be 2, 3, and maybe even some 4-story townhome product in there. And the fronts of all of the townhomes will be located on either linear parks or kind of small communal parks. So, and those park spaces will include, fire pits and seating areas for residents. And each one of the units will have a small patio area towards the front of the unit as well. And so when you think about how that whole land plan comes together, it's done purposefully in a way to try to encourage social interaction amongst the residents. So rather than, your typical single-family home where your patio area that you primarily enjoy is in the back of the house, that patio area will be in the front of the house, and that front of the house is then on a park space that'll encourage interaction with neighbors next to you and across the park as well.
That's great. That sounds good, and we need that. We need a little bit more of connectedness.
Yeah.
So when will is that a separate phase, or will that be a part of what you consider part of this phase?
Yeah, I mean, it's, in terms of the project, we're just moving the whole thing forward, right? So it's kind of one big phase, I guess. It's separate than the Rowley. We'll be partnering with a couple of home builders to be building the for sale product. We don't develop that directly. And expecting that we'll start to see infrastructure for that go in as early as this fall, and start to see some, housing coming out of the ground in 2025. So there definitely will be more to come, I'm sure, as we the builders get their product together and start working on pricing. There'll be plenty of news out in the marketplace, for people to see and be able to decide if that's a good place for them to live. That
was going to be my next question. So has Hines done something like this somewhere else in another state?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to look at some exact numbers. A big part of what we've done as a firm has been mixed-use development. And probably, a great example here locally would be Cool Springs. That was one of our first larger planned community developments, started back in the mid-1990s. It was about 1,000 acres, located in Franklin, obviously, on the east side of I-65, more or less from Moore's Lane all the way up through Cool Springs Boulevard.
So you're referring to the mall and all the development around it?
Not the mall itself, but
Okay.
everything east of 65, all of that kind of planned development, mix of office, multifamily, retail, that was a Hines community.
A very attractive area.
Yeah, very well done. So that's a good example. But overall, we've really developed dozens of projects that have kind of this mixed use in character. In terms of land development, I know we're over 25,000 acres of land development that we've done in the U.S. over the years. Many of those being larger scale planned communities up to 2,500 acres in some cases. And then more recently, we've really been focused on these, I would call it, kind of suburban core nodes, where you have a concentration of retail amenities that are in place, and then we can bring in some housing and retail in a more of a village format that provides a little differentiated housing than what you typically see in the suburban context.
Let's talk about the restaurants. Residents are already enjoying Firebirds.
Right.
I believe it is maybe a chain, but there are other, it may not be a chain, but there are other Firebirds around. There
Yes.
might even be one in Brentwood or somewhere, maybe Atlanta. I'm not sure exactly, but why do you start with the restaurants? There must be a plan to that or a strategy.
And yeah, I mean, I think from the get-go, given the location across from the avenue and proximity to I-24, we thought there'd be strong demand for additional restaurants in Clari Park. And so one of the things I know the city had asked us to really kind of focus on and try to work on, so it was a priority for us, out of the gate. Firebird is a fantastic operator. I think this is their 80th restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
They did share with us that this had been their number one opening in all of their chain
Really?
in terms of the volume of sales that they've done to date. So
That's
Murfreesboro
good to
should be
see for
proud.
you and us. right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So they've been wonderfully supported by the community. I know they're working hard to do a great job. And we're looking forward to to many more to follow behind. We have Raising Cane's is under construction currently. They'll be right next to Redstone Bank, and then next to them, we just completed the closing of the parcel to In-N-Out Burgers. So we'll have a In-N-Out there immediately between Firebirds and Raising Cane's. As we mentioned earlier, Cava is already under construction and finishing out their fit out, so hopefully they'll be open soon. Immediately next to Cava will be P.F. Chang's. They should be starting construction anytime now.
And people here know of that particular chain because it's been in Nashville for quite some time.
Quite a
so-
while, yeah. They're again another great operator and a little differentiated offering from some of the other restaurants, which is good. We want to have some diversity. Behind Firebirds and P.F. Chang's, we're really kind of excited to have two really good restaurants and operators. One local, Neighbors Bar and Grill. This will be their fourth location in Nashville. Neighbors is owned and run by Zach and Victoria Pillar. So Zach was a former Titans player, and so they really do a great job of providing what their name says. I mean, kind of a neighborhood location for people to get together, do a lot of outdoor dining, and do some outdoor games and seating and bring your dog. So it's very much kind of family-friendly place where you would go more than once a week is kind of their idea. And directly across from them is going to be Drake's, which is great American cuisine, and interestingly enough, they do a lot of sushi business. It's kind of an interesting mix of American fare and sushi. And both Drake's and Neighbors will be located fronting on a park space. And so you'll kind of have this sense of, walking between the public park and to the restaurants. We'll do some planned events there, like music on a Friday night or a Saturday night. So that's really kind of intended to be part of the walkable core of the community with both of those two great restaurants right there.
So the way Hines does this is, and you explain it to me, but apparently you buy land, but then you sell it or parcel it out to these restaurants or other retailers.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Sometimes we'll actually develop more of a retail center where we might do the retail leasing. In this case, we really just decided to sell the out parcels to bring in different users.
Are there any other restaurants that we talk mostly about? I think there's one other Buona beef, perhaps?
Yeah, Buona beef. I'm excited to excited to bring them to the area. This is a fourth generation Chicago-based family restaurant, and their prime product is the Italian beef sandwich. Many people have probably heard of Portillo's. It's similar to Portillo's. I would say Buona is better. And so we're really excited to have them there. And it's kind of an interesting concept what they're doing. They're mixing in one building. There'll be Buona beef in half of it, and then another long-term Chicago institution, the Rainbow Cone Ice Cream Shop. And this is almost a 100-year business that will be right next to Buona. So families can come and have their Italian beef sandwich and then go and have their ice cream cone right after that. So we're excited about that.
So, I mean, we're talking about nearly a dozen restaurants, it seems like here, that so the company likes food, or you believe that people like food, right?
Yeah, I believe that this, I believe that there was a demand for it here. I mean, Murfreesboro's got a great staple of existing restaurants, but we felt like there was an opportunity to bring some new variety, to the marketplace. And I think given the reception that we've seen at Firebirds, it seems like that thesis is playing out well.
Yeah, there are certain communities that tend to eat out a lot, and I think we're one of them.
Yeah, it just depends. And then don't want to forget Main Event and Whataburger, who are both now open. Main Event's if you haven't been there, it's a great family entertainment facility. They've got all kinds of bowling to all kinds of arcade games on the interior and laser tag. So, if you've got kids in that birthday party age range on a Saturday, that place is just hopping.
Or grandkids. Right?
Or grandkids,
as the case may be.
Yeah.
Now, the project committed to some street improvements too, some enhancements, mainly because I think Medical Center, for one, it needed some enhancements, which the city is committed to in terms of doing some widening, but you also added to that.
We did. We committed to and have completed a widening of Medical Center Parkway. So we added a third lane for the full frontage of Clari Park, about a half mile of roadway frontage to expand the capacity of Medical Center. And then we're also actually have completed a portion of it, but we're going to be completing Willow Oak all the way from Medical Center, back to Wilkinson Pike. And that's an important piece of the overall transportation puzzle, because it provides another connection from Wilkinson Pike to Medical Center, which right now all that traffic goes down to Gresham Park, and that definitely has become a bottleneck. So this will help provide a relief to that and another node of connection between the north side of town and Medical Center. So that we had committed to the city we would complete that by mid-2025, but we're actually advancing that timing, and so we should be starting construction on that final leg here in the next 30 days and have that done definitely before the end of this year.
Thank you. While we're on that topic, Stones River National Battlefield is right nearby, which is another amenity that the folks in this area, the Clari Park, can enjoy. What are the plans for making that connection between Clari Park and Stones River?
Well, we there's a connection today that you can, by going down and down to Thompson Lane and using the sidewalk network, you can get to the battlefield, you can get to the city's greenway system. So there is a biking connection today. We're working with the city on eventually their plans, hopefully to make some additional improvements to Wilkinson Pike that would kind of provide a backdoor
because it's slated
Stones
for
River.
widening.
It's slated for widening at some point down the road. So as part of that, we would hope that there would be sidewalk connection. We'll complete the sidewalk connection so we can get to Wilkinson Pike, and now it's just a matter of that last piece of the puzzle to be able to allow for a bicycle connection into the national park, which would be great.
Well, again, as a city, we really appreciate the investment that your company has made, and it's the project's looking great visually, and it's really popping up fast. Is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of the project or your investment here?
I think another interesting thing to cover off on would be how we came up with the name Clari Park for the project. We always try to find some type of historical connection, if possible, to come up with a name, because we think it's great for the local community to tie, and then also for new residents coming there. They love that kind of some historical connection to the land, some sense of place and sense of permanence. And what we found out was the evening before the Battle of Stones Creek began, You had the Confederate Army camped out in one location, and across the field was the Union Army camped out. And both of them traveled with musicians and bands at that time, just to provide music in the evening time, to try to settle the nerves of the soldiers from both armies. Well, one of the bands began playing a tune by the name of Home Sweet Home. And while they were playing it, the band from the other army, joined in unison. So you had this kind of nice moment of tranquility that both of the bands for the armies were participating in before the battle began. And so we looked into that a little bit further, and what we found out was that the music that was the basis for Home Sweet Home actually came from an Italian opera by the name of Clari. And so we thought, tying into that kind of moment of tranquility and that moment of unity, despite the fact that this was, in the midst of the Civil War, would be a nice way to tie to the history of the land and do it in, a positive, uplifting way. And so that's where Clari came from. It was from that Italian opera, so we named the project Clari Park, tying into that great story. And it's actually highlighted in the educational center at
Stones River?
At Stones River, yeah, the Home Sweet Home portion. I don't know if it referred back to the opera Clari. We kind of found that out through some additional research.
But even if residents don't know, they'll begin to know through this podcast and through other announcements. And I think it's great that you chose to do that, because there are a lot of people around here that do have that sense of history and sense of place. And it's one of the things that, as an amenity, how often are you able to go to a city and in the middle of the city is a national park?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
And now we'll have the amenities, the more modern, the future alongside of it. So thanks a lot, Walter, for being with us on this podcast and for sharing some of your development with us.
Great. Well, I really appreciate the time, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. We've been highlighting the Clari Park development, a large project across from the Avenue, with Walter O'Shea. The Insider originates from City Hall. Thanks for listening via Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music Audible. Our producer is Michael Nevels. For more information on the City of Murfreesboro, you can visit murfreesborotn.gov. The Insider is the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Thanks for joining us.